Hello guys, good day. By the way, I'm Emmanuel M. De Vera. My report is all about groundwater. So what is groundwater? Groundwater is water stored in open spaces within underground rocks and sediments. More than 65% of the underground water used in the US is attributed into agricultural. In specifically, underground water is the water found underground in the cracks, spaces, and soil, sand, and rocks. It is stored in and moves slowly through geologic formations of soil, sand, and rocks called aquifers. So, this is the groundwater and hydrologic cycle. Groundwater is 22% of the world's fresh water. Uh, Groundwater composed of condensation to ocean, transpiration from vegetation, uh, um, evaporation from soil to ocean, moist air to continent, precipitation to ocean, groundwater to rivers and oceans. So that's the hydrologic cycle. So next is porosity. Porosity is an intrinsic property of every material. It refers to the amount of empty space within a given material. In a soil or rock, the porosity, empty space, exists between the grains and minerals. And the other is permeability. What is permeability? Permeability is another intrinsic property of all materials and is closely related to porosity. Permeability refers to how connected pure space are to one another. In additional, in porosity and permeability, as we've learned, groundwater is simply water that exists underground. However, there are still lots of misconceptions about how people envision groundwater. Many envision large underground lakes and rivers, and while those do exist, they represent an infinitesimally small percentage of all groundwater. Generally speaking, groundwater exists in the pure spaces between grains of soil and rocks. Imagine a water-filled sponge. All of the holes in that sponge are water-filled. By squeezing that sponge, we force the water out. Similarly, by pumping an aquifer, we force the water out of the pure spaces. So, this is the pore space. Look at the image of the A and B. Particle size, particle shape, sorting of particles, amount of materials, cementing the grains together, fractures in materials, and internal arrangement of particles. In permeability, materials must have both porosity and permeability to allow water to move through it. Styrofoam has high porosity. This makes it a good insulator, keep things hot or cold. Styrofoam has low permeability, allows you to keep liquid in it. Clay has high porosity but low permeability. Little water movement through clay keeps things hot or cold. So, permeability and high porosity in styrofoam. So, in short, because of the small pore spaces, it is able to hold a liquid and able to preserve the temperature for a while. So next, this is the materials with high porosity and high permeability. 1. Sandstone, sand, fractured limestone, gravel, fractured granite, granites. Okay. Aquifers and aquicludes. Aquifers and aquicludes. Aquifers, a porous and permeable layer capable of transmitting groundwater, well-rounded, well-sorted, and sand and gravel. Aquicludes, an impermeable layer preventing movement of groundwater. Shales, unfractured, igneous, and metamorphic rocks, crystalline limestone. So, what is the difference between aquicludes and aquifers? Aquifers, an aquiclude or aquifuge, which is a solid impermeable area underlying or overlying an aquifer, while aquifer is a body of permeable rock that can contain or transmit groundwater. The sand aquifer will be most effective. Confined versus unconfined. Unconfined aquifers. Aquifer is not bounded by impermeable layers, while confined aquifer is surrounded impermeable layers above and below. What is this is
Wait lang.
So the difference of two, while the unconfined aquifers is water table marks upper surface, while confined aquifers, water is usually underground under pressure. Water table, the boundary between saturated field versus unsaturated field pure spaces in unconfined aquifer system only. Water table is an underground boundary between the soil surface and the area where groundwater saturates space between sediments and cracks in rock. Water pressure and atmospheric pressure are equal at this boundary. Underneath the water table is the saturated zone where water fills all spaces between the sediments. Influent or gaining stream. Flow velocity of groundwater is variable, very fast to very slow. Flows from high to low pressure areas. So this is the figure of the draining stream from water table, zone of aeration, high pressure, zone of saturation, low pressure, high pressure. In losing stream, water table, zone of aeration, effluent or losing stream. In some areas, streams act as recharge zones for unconfined aquifers, losing water from their channel to the material below. Springs, a place where the water table intersects the ground space, causing water to seep out of the ground. Water well. A water well is made by drilling or digging into the zone of saturation. Water pump from a well causes a cone of depreciation. Aquifers and aquicludes. So guys, aquifers and aquicludes, this is already I already mentioned these aquifers and aquicludes. So, confined system. Groundwater is confined between impermeable layers, aquicludes or aquithards, and build up hydrostatic pressure. Water to that pressure surface once a well is drilled. Many rural communities utilize this principle with water towers as the municipal water supply. Modification and effects on groundwater. Currently, 20 to 30% of the water used in the US is groundwater, much higher in some places. Modification will lower the water table, decrease hydrostatic pressure, allow saltwater encroachment, cause subsidence, allow contamination of the groundwater related to subsidence. ground levels have decreased in elevation due to water withdrawal from aquifers. Issues. This is the contamination issues. Septic tank and landfills. Tank, drain pipes from house septic tank to drain pipes to high water table, zone of aeration, average water table, zone of saturation. While in landfill, zone of aeration, average water table, zone of saturation, leaking clay liner. So, this is the wetlands and groundwater. Okay? Marsh, areas of land that are frequently to constantly inundated and are characterized by soft stem emergement vegetation and bogs, wet muddy ground too soft to support a heavy body, a pet bog, swamp, fins, hot groundwater, geysers and hot springs. Okay. Karst landscape, caves. So that is my report. Thank you.